the last time you won a race?
Sunday, Daytona.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant Formula One.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then same as you.
There's a scene in F1 that I think counts as the movie's big rah-rah speech. It's about how if everybody on the crew contributes a half second at some point in the race, if they can all just find a fraction of a second here or there, that's the difference between last place and first. As far as sports movie speeches go, it's pretty good. But what I found so intriguing about it is that it perfectly describes the difference between a bad sports movie and a good one. It seems to be a lesson Joseph Kosinski, Brad Pitt, and the rest of the team behind F1 took to heart. As a sports movie following some pretty tried and true tactics, F1 ups its game at every stage of things. This won't win it any awards for originality, but it still adds up to a real win. I'm Clint Gage, and this is my review of F1, the movie.
We need to build our car for combat.
How am I supposed to make that safe?
Who said anything about safe?
I am a sucker for sports movies. Unashamedly and unreservedly, I love an underdog defying the odds on a field, a court, a pitch, wherever, even, as it turns out, on a racetrack. Now, there's something comforting about their formula, which comes in subtly different flavors, of course. Inspirational, comedic, based on a true story, based on a true Super Bowl ad that teams Michael Jordan with Bugs Bunny. But ever since Rocky in '76, any new entry in the genre gets a head start thanks to a blueprint that's honestly hard to mess up. And F1 is definitely a sports movie that does not mess it up. Director Joseph Kosinski clearly has both hands on the wheel where the sports movie formula is concerned. The story he's concocted with Transformers vet Aaron Kruger follows an aging, never-was race car driver as he tries to rescue his old pal's team and the cocky rookie driver who's got lessons to learn before he can realize his full potential.
I think it's really wonderful that Apex are giving second chances to the elderly.
Throw in a romantic interest and feel free to stop me when you've heard all that before. But if I were to use the word formulaic here, it's not meant to be derogatory. Because here's the thing about a good formula. If it didn't yield good movies, people wouldn't use it over and over again. But it requires a steady and delicate hand. Use too much of one ingredient here or apply the wrong amount of heat over there, and the whole thing can blow up in your face. Or, dare we get too on the nose with this metaphor, the perfect car can still lose a race with the bad driver. On a technical level, F1 is impeccably put together. Kosinski and his frequent collaborator, Academy Award-winning cinematographer Claudio Miranda, put cameras in just all of the places. Picking up where they left off with Top Gun Maverick, F1 is filled with impossible angles and quick robotic pans that make us feel like we're at the mercy of these rocket ship machines, every bit as much as Brad Pitt is driving the things. The major difference between the movie's depictions of speed and mechanical might is that there isn't a global television audience tuning in nearly every weekend from mid-March to early December to watch fighter jets tool around. There's a deep cultural familiarity with what a Formula One race is supposed to look like on screen. F1 the movie understands that too. One shot puts you intimately and dangerously into the driver's seat, while the next feels broadcast worthy. The editing does the same as well, thanks to Stephen Mirioni, another member of the pit crew with an Oscar in the garage. The film is cut beautifully and peacefully in stretches, chaotically and nervously in others. There's one character who owes her entire struggling to keep up to coming through in the clutch story arc to the editing. That particular sports movie must-have is landed perfectly in the 3-second edit of a tire change, and it literally got applause in my theater.
Oh, I'm jammed!
Now, there is something fun about Joseph Kosinski directing a racing movie with a Top Gun movie under his belt. It was just a few movies after Tony Scott directed the original Top Gun that he made Days of Thunder. Now, there's some interesting symmetry there beyond just the coincidence of finding your way from the cockpit to the racetrack and, well, Jerry Bruckheimer. It is worth a revisit to Tony Scott's films to see the similarities between the dogfighting in Top Gun and the paint trading of Days of Thunder. The macho drama on display in both films as well. You can draw a mostly straight line to what Kosinski has done here in taking the lessons learned from Top Gun Maverick and applying them to the story and technical side of F1. Also, Jerry Bruckheimer is there. But that's behind the camera. In front of the camera, you can see the fruits of the reliable sports movie formula as well. The fun everybody had making this movie is both obvious and infectious. There's an ease and a joy that shows up in even the tensest scenes. Everybody knows the score. It's like they all decided, hey, we've seen this movie before, so let's just have some fun, which is a thing you can get away with when you have this kind of talent on screen.
It's the last thing I do is drive that car.
Pitt plays his character, Sonny Hayes, like the Don Quixote of driving, searching for that great prize that even he can't articulate and carrying F1 with the uncomplicated charm of one of Earth's last movie stars. Sonny approaches his assignment with what he describes as hard-earned wisdom and a directness that sometimes borders on disinterested. He's every bit the archetypal weary veteran, a Brad Pitt specialty at this point in his career. It's the type that won him his Oscar after all. And if he'd endeavored to paint outside the lines too much, F1 would have been a weaker movie for it. And the supporting cast is stacked with celebrated actors doing admirable work alongside Pitt. Javier Bardem is perfect as the friend who's in over his head and needs a Hail Mary. It's fair to mix those sports metaphors, by the way, because F1 also does it. But he's rooting for Sonny, and we're rooting for him. It works great. Kerry Condon is charming as hell as technical director Kate McKinnon, a tremendous foil for Sonny, and Damson Idris as Joshua Pierce, who's also doing a great job being the aforementioned arrogant young racer with a lot to learn from the grizzled old man.
He's old. He's such a prick. He's quick, though.
All the pieces you'd expect are there, and again, plussing up the familiar is the best thing Kosinski and his crew have done with F1. They've built a supercharged vehicle that can outdo the competition on almost every level, give or take a 2.5 hour plus runtime. While I can totally understand the instinct to include every frame of that in the driver's seat footage by the time F1 made its final laps, I was starting to feel out of gas. And looking back at the movie, it's a little hard to put my finger on any particular parts that dragged or specific scenes that, just didn't work. But I do get the sense that whole chunks of this movie could have been gone and we wouldn't have known they were missing. There are a couple of scenes that feel a little indulgent, like everybody on set or in the edit thought they were a lot of fun, but for the rest of us, they're a little cheesy. Nothing that clearly should have been cut though, but that's its own kind of problem for a 2.5 hour movie. And this is where the film runs into the downside of a formula. For most of F1, the competition is internal, with Sonny and Joshua battling themselves and each other. Their rivals on the circuit are all familiar faces and sponsors from the real world of Formula One, but as movie characters, they're as anonymous as the enemy countries in Top Gun and Maverick. As if to correct for this lack of an antagonistic Ivan Drago to their Rocky, or Yankees to their Bad News Bears, or East Germany to their Jamaican bobsled team, an adversarial element that's been hovering in the background plays an outsized importance in the final act. It's one extra thing that the formula demands, but that F1 just doesn't need. The climactic race also gets a little exposition heavy, going out of its way to establish the obscure rules, maybe just semi-obscure rules, I'm not that into actual Formula One racing, that bring a last gasp of hope to Sonny and Joshua's chances. That's not the case for the rest of F1. You don't have to be fluent in the sport to tell what's going on in the rest of the races. Each one brings a new obstacle, which in turn gives rise to a new character-building solution. It's a pattern that really works, escalating in all the right ways until Kosinski goes to the well one too many times. But that's the formula for you, I suppose. It's a game of inches with sports movies, or in the case of F1, tenths of a second.
3 laps! 3 laps is a lifetime!
Kosinski and his incredibly talented crew have all the pedigree to elevate a road-tested format. Brad Pitt and his co-stars are talented drivers sitting on top of an immaculately crafted race car, and all any of them need to do is hang on and not steer too far out of their lane. For 125 or so of its 156 minutes, F1 is every bit the experienced veteran. In its weaker moments, though, it reverts back to brash rookie mode. One of my favorite stories about art and its influence is about, of all people, Eddie Van Halen. And the story goes that somebody was feeling confident, and they went up to Eddie and said, "Psh, anybody can play Eruption." Eddie, though, supposedly, was nonplussed and replied, "Yeah, but can they write it?" Now, I love this story for 2 reasons. Number one, hell yeah, Eddie. That's one of the greatest shutdowns of all time, if it's true. But number 2, the arrogance to think that anybody can play Eruption is as absurd a notion as actually saying that to Eddie Van Halen in the first place. And the lesson here, where F1 is concerned, is that it takes a proper musician to play the hits. And it's the people that think anybody can do it that are truly mistaken. So yes, F1 paints by numbers its way through a sports movie formula, but the talent that made the movie can absolutely shred. And the other reason this story springs to mind is that F1 is a movie that insists on being watched loud. Hans Zimmer's score gets to hang out with some pretty inspired classic rock needle drops that fit right in with the veteran versus rookie dynamic on screen. Anyway, that's how I feel about sports movies and Van Halen.
My Rook is a phenomenal talent. Phenomenal! But he's young. You plus him, boom! I got a team.
F1 the movie is getting a 7, if for no other reason for including the movie as part of its official title, but maybe that's just me and my weirdness. And to be fair, it's closer to an 8 than it is a 6. Joseph Kosinski assembles an all-star crew in front of and behind the camera, and they craft a technical marvel of a movie. It's gorgeous and thrilling to look at, with top-notch editing backing up Brad Pitt's IMAX-consuming charisma. Now, F1 is a faithful devotee to the sports movie formula, and that's kept from greatness by a few too many unnecessary components and a finish line that maybe should have been a little closer than 2.5 hours away. But in spite of that, it's still a hell of a ride.
Hope it's not a strategy.
Anything else, Professor?
Try fast.
That is what I thought of F1. Let me know if you're excited about it in the comments. What's your favorite racing movie? There have been some pretty good ones. And in the meantime, for more movie reviews, be sure to subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch.